We are live.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, the Menace, and he, the Stan, the man.
A stand or B stand, depends on who you ask.
Yeah. We got a pretty cool little episode tonight. We got the man behind the UFC. How many years ago would you say?
Forever. I think he was there for like 15, 20 years.
Yeah, we'll get the more of the detail when we get him on here. But Burt Watson, he's the...
I don't know if he came before the Zuffa era, but I know the whole Zuffa era, he was the guy up until
Yes.
up until very recent.
Yeah.
Yes, now looking at it, I should have been on the other side of my setup. Tomato. But we should.
Yeah, that's good.
But yeah, episode 105, Menace and the Man. It's good to see you again, Menace.
Likewise, your hair's looking pretty good.
Yeah, Menace is back in the gym, I saw.
For a teenage boy, your hair's looking pretty good.
For a teenage boy. For me?
I meant girl, yeah.
I was like a teenage girl. He's here.
I told you, he's very punctual.
All right, so let's see what punctuality looks like.
I mean, he was ready to go at like 5:30.
There he is.
Watson.
Well, bam!
We got you, Burt?
Bam!
What's up, baby?
What's going on, big dog?
Man, you know the drill. I'm trying to make it, baby. One day at a time.
Yeah.
Is that volume good?
Yeah, that vibe.
Yeah, well, I can hear you really good.
Okay. All right. Well, shit, I'm ready to roll, baby. Bam, bam.
So we already went live. We just have people come in wild. But I was kind of doing an intro of you, and I was like, Burt Watson was the man behind the scenes of UFC, and I was trying to think of like, I don't know when you started there.
Man, I actually, I think I was probably maybe the third hire. I started my first UFC in UFC 30 in 2000. That was the very first UFC that I did I think it was, don't quote me because I'm old. Okay. It was 30 or 30. It was 2000 or 2001, but I was in UFC 30. That was the first. And I did every one of them up until 185. That included the tough finale, the Ultimate Fighter, the Underground, and the WEC and Strike Force, and all those things combined. I did every one of them up until I left. I think it was 185.
And you left, you weren't fired.
No, I left.
You retired, right?
Well, I had a slight disagreement.
Okay.
With one of the executives there.
When they got bought out?
No, this was before, and it was just before they got bought out, and it wasn't Dana White, and it wasn't Lorenzo Fertitta. Someone else said something to me that at the time I thought questioned my integrity, questioned my work performance, and just questioned me. And I kind of had been spoiled a little bit because I wasn't used to being questioned.
Right.
And he did. And of course, I am Burt. I am also Philly. Okay. And all of that came out at the same time. You know, he got Mad Burt, he got Philly Burt, and he got all of them at one time. And I just, said my mind and kind of walked in another direction. And it actually stayed that way.
Yeah.
But that was in 2015.
Now, what was your actual, like, I know what your role was. I just don't know what it's called or what, you know what I mean?
I was the coordinator. And what I did actually, once the matchmaker, who at the time when I first started was Joe Silva.
Right.
Once he had put the fight together, and while he was putting the fight together, or while he was matchmaking, I was the person who was in charge of or worked with the team that went out and initially when we first started, when I'm talking about UFC 30, 31, 30, when we was
you were doing like 7, 8 jobs.
Yeah, when we was digging ditches, baby. You know, once the fight was made, I went and got the hotel and kind of got the transportation and
that was all on you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That is a nightmare.
Yes, sir. Transportation. Once the flights were booked, I got all the flights. I coordinated the pickup for all the fighters. I coordinated the arrival at the airport, from the airport to the hotel. Once they got there to the hotel, I coordinated with, there was a group, an admin group headed by, at the time it was a young lady, her name escapes me. Then Donna Marcolini came in and Tony Barbosa, and they had hotel rooms, so I coordinated the hotel rooms with them. I set up the workout rooms for everybody. I made sure that everybody had a per diem, that they were on the list. I had to coordinate the rooming list because
can't fight on the same level, right?
The worst thing you needed to do was to walk out of your hotel room and walk right into the guy that you were fighting. His room was right next to yours. So I coordinated rooms to make sure guys were separated and comfortable, and that they had access to me, the office, the workout rooms. I made sure all the rooms were set up, and then I met everybody. When every fighter came in, I personally met every individual fighter. Personally. One-on-one, eye to eye, baby.
And you gave each person yo, this is what we're doing. Here's your itinerary, what you put together.
Yes.
Be there, don't be late, because I will pull your ass off the card.
Real. Well, you know what? I also, as you know, when you guys got in and got to the hotel, I had somebody there to pick you up.
Right.
I had somebody there to bring you to me. When you came to me, first thing I did was I took you
on
to a
scale,
checked your weight. So I was responsible to make sure we had scales. So I got the first set of scales. I made sure we had at least, when we had events, we had a minimum of 3 scales on set.
While we're on that subject, what's the craziest weight you saw? Like, usually it was a Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
They fly in Tuesday for a Saturday night fight. What's the craziest weight you saw where you're like, bro, what?
Realizing now, I'm a guy that came from boxing. And in boxing, if a guy week of was 5 pounds, 4 or 5 pounds over, there probably wasn't going to be a fight. Okay, it was Panic City.
Yeah.
The craziest weight I ever saw was 26 pounds. Now, I'm not going to shame him, okay, and tell you who it was, but 26 pounds was the craziest weight cut I've ever seen. And again, this was my intro to MMA. I didn't know what MMA was before I was introduced to it, and I wasn't very familiar, so I had to learn it very quickly. So I didn't think it was possible, physically possible for a guy, and I've been in work with professional athletes since I'd say 1983. I didn't think it was physically possible for a guy to lose 10 pounds in a week. Had no idea.
I usually showed up 12 over. 158 was my, I would get on there and be like, please be 158. Like, all right, cool.
Yeah, I know. But I got to know the guys that I wasn't going to have a problem with. I got to know, and you were one of them.
Yeah.
And not just because I'm sitting on your show, because if you weren't, I'd out you right now.
Yeah. That's what we're into. We like thinking of each other. Stan likes to make me feel awkward, so if you feel it's there.
Yeah, man, I'd out you with the swiftness. But you were good, you know, and I had to really get used to guys coming in and needing to lose 10 pounds. That was unfathomable to me. It was not possible, but I learned very quickly that it was par for the course. Because of the fact that you guys were grapplers and wrestlers, you were used to cutting weight and cutting a certain amount of weight during the week. So I didn't know about it. The guy stepped on the scale and the fight was 155 and this guy was almost 170 pounds, 171. And I was like, whoa. But I learned real quick. I saw you guys did it. I had to go along with it. I snuck into the workout rooms because I had to get the workout rooms together as well. Number one, I had to make sure that they were in a secure place. I had to make sure that the scale was there, a scale that worked, a scale in each room.
Right.
I also learned as I went along with you guys that you guys picked each other up and ran each other against the wall. And
that divider.
Right, or started against the wall. Now, that's not very good in a hotel that had those walls that you pulled out. That was not very good to lean up. Very few times I got called, Mr. Watson, we need you to go in there and look at our wall in that hotel room.
So when the hotel had any problem, they called you.
I made it a point that once I got to the hotel, got the room set, and got everything straight, I got to know where the security is. I got to know where the front door, the back door, where the kitchen was. Then I went to the manager of the hotel, and I was very explicit. I said to them, you call me before you call the cops. And they knew exactly what I meant. I said, now I'm not saying this to scare you or that my guys are going to misbehave, but I need to be the first phone call before you made that second phone call, because you guys were a little frisky,
Well, in terms of, because I remember the workout room was just like, guys there be sweaty towels everywhere, like their mom was going to come clean up after them, cups everywhere, but soaked underwear somewhere, you know what I mean?
All hanging off the scale and left them on the ground, and but I understood that. I learned that very quickly, and I had a group of guys that we went behind you guys, and when you came into the workout room the next day or in between shifts, those rooms were always clean. The towels were always picked up. I always created the room and set the room up so that you guys only had a certain way to go.
I got a quick question in terms of, it's regarding me in terms of doing the right things. You said you worked up to UFC 185?
Yes.
UFC 180, it was me versus Ricardo Lamas in Mexico City.
Yes.
Where Mark Hunt almost got kidnapped like twice, right?
Almost 3 times.
We'll get to that. But so I lost that fight, whatever. The next time I lost, which a couple years, right, Stan?
Yes.
What do you say, Lamas?
Then after Lamas, who did I lose it? Maybe Jeremy Stevens?
Yeah, Stevens was right after Lamas.
They had like almost security following me around, and like I'm like, yo, what the fuck? And I forget who told me, like, yeah, Dennis, they said you caused like $11,000 worth of damage after your last loss, so that's why we have people following you. I'm like, no, I fucking didn't. I kicked like a garbage can or two.
Well, maybe they were $5,000 a piece. Okay.
I wasn't sure if maybe you had. I mean, obviously you have so much. Was there anything like Dennis was destructive, cost a lot of money?
Well, here's what I do remember, and it wasn't. Who was the guy that was in charge of your camp?
Trimble.
There you go. The big guy.
Trimble.
I was told that after that, that you had gotten upset with somebody, and that you were tossing stuff around, and and just not being respectful. That's the way it was told to me. But then everybody, the one thing that I had to do was, I understood you guys being upset. I understood when you guys lost or when you guys won, you really lost it a little bit. You
for sure.
So happy or so sad. Your surroundings, they were just there. So I had to go around and tell them. That's why I always said, call me before you call the cops. I always said to them, listen, these guys.
This was at the arena.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Same thing. Yeah. Same thing at the arena. I would tell them that these guys, you know, if things get a little out of hand, as opposed to you trying to control it or get in the middle of it, get to me first and let me talk to them. As opposed, because this guy didn't know how, you know, you were upset.
Right. I definitely told a guy or two, like, if you don't get the fuck away from me right now, it's not going to be fucking good. Like, and I'm not, like, I will kill you. I probably said that for, like, and I'm, like, tearing. I got, like, my eyes are probably, like, red, and I'm, like, bleeding somewhere. Like,
and one of the officials was a lady. Okay, who you scared?
Longer hair?
Yes,
oh,
you scared
definitely.
her to
Dennis
death.
gave her the crazy eyes.
I did.
Gave her the crazy eyes, probably.
Yeah, see, but you know what? At the time, you got to realize that we were brand new. We were a brand new sport. They didn't know how to approach you guys. They didn't know how to accept you guys. They didn't know whether to be afraid, you know, or whether somebody was going to punch them in the face or whatever. And the one guy said to me, he said, your guy there cursed one of my officials out and told him not to come in the room. So, you know, I understood that. Now, I don't know exactly what you said to him, but I was told that you threatened them and told them that they better not come back in that room. So
I wasn't leaving the room, I think.
Wait, that did happen. That might have happened.
Oh no, what he's saying is definitely true. Because I'm like in my locker room, and they would listen. They don't know exactly what they're doing, but it was like in my like bubble. If I did like a fucking tornado kick, I would have kicked them.
Yes.
Like, don't even. And they're like, I probably look like a caged animal, like looking at me, just like, what is like this guy is a complete psychopath. So like it's like a car crash. You can't look away. So like they're probably staring at me because I'm fucking losing my shit. I'm like, you guys like stop, like go away, leave me alone. Like fucking even my corner's like, I'll look over here. And just,
Yep.
In the 11,000 in damage, Menace, maybe it was some therapy bills.
I did. I definitely. I was hoping he would be like, "Oh, you broke this." Like, I definitely didn't do $11,000 with him.
No.
Therapy.
I will say this. I
don't know what the number was, but they said 1,000 some whatever.
Yeah, it was. It might have been a couple of hundred, maybe 500 something. But 11,000.
I think it's bullshit. I think the arena knew. Hey, these guys got enough money to pay us for shit. Let's just like throw a tab at them. They'll pay it.
Well, you know, it's. I had that happen to me once, and we were in Atlantic City, and it was. I forgot exactly which UFC it was, but Frank Mir was on it, and he actually was in the room working out with his father. His father was with him. And somebody threw somebody up against the wall and broke the picture. The picture came off the wall and the picture cracked down. That was the first call that I got. Then there was a situation down at the front desk where we had the check-in desk was in the lounge, the lobby of the hotel.
Yeah.
You had the checkout, and then right across you had like a bar area, and everybody always, even though you guys weren't drinking, you know, or anything like that, and weren't smoking, there was no smoking allowed, but you weren't drinking, but you were crowded in that bar. And some fan came over to Mark Coleman and Kevin Randleman.
Wow.
And said to them that shit wasn't real.
I mean, they, of all the people to say it to, those two look the most like pro wrestlers.
Oh,
well, let me tell you that, and the point I'm getting to was a scuffle broke out, and they chased this guy into the bathroom. The guy ran into the bathroom and locked the stall. Well, how do you think they got in that stall? Okay, they grabbed the top of the stall and they ripped him. They ripped the stall. That was the most expensive tab that the UFC ever paid, and that was, I think that was like they did about $5,000 or $6,000 worth of damage in that bathroom trying to get that guy.
You know what's funny? I was going to segue to that. Burt definitely has some Phil stories. Baroni.
Phil Baroni is Stan's cousin.
Yeah. You know what's crazy? I just talked to Phil about, well, I didn't talk to him. I texted him about a month and a half, 2 months ago, and he's still Phil Baroni. He has not changed. I ran into Phil because I did a little bare knuckle, and Phil was in a bare knuckle event in Wyoming. Maybe? Was it Wyoming?
Somewhere in the mid, yeah, somewhere over there in the middle.
I think it was somewhere in the Midwest, and somehow Phil didn't want to fight, or didn't. His opponent was changed, and they were trying to negotiate, and the negotiation didn't come out right. And I had a conversation with him, and my conversation to him was, Phil, listen, these guys, I don't know these guys. You don't know these guys. Just get your fight, get your money, and get out of here. Well, that didn't happen, and Phil is blaming me for the fact that them guys duped him for his money. And that was the nature of the phone call 2 months ago. You still owe me $40,000.
Wow.
Well, it was not a real good situation because the guys, whoever they were, I don't even want to mention their name. Some of the guys.
Right, because there was a bare knuckle fighting series that was like kind of fraudulent, right?
That was
not BKNF.
They had Bob Rutan like act as the figurehead for it.
Yes, that was the one that they had some problems with, and Phil Baroni 2 months ago asked me where was his money. I said, Phil, you know what? You still crazy as hell. But I was on the phone, okay? I was not in front of. But Phil was no different than any other fighter that lost a fight or won a fight.
Right.
Or was upset, with certain things. It didn't take much. It didn't take much to set you guys to another direction when you were during the week of cutting weight.
Yeah. And
fight week. I got 4 people in the course of the week. I got the guy that showed up that finally got a fight, that finally either made it to the UFC and was where he thought he was needed to be. I got the guy that had to cut weight. I got the guy that either made weight or didn't make weight, and then I got the guy fight night. So that's 4 different people out of one guy in the course of a week.
Yeah.
And I had to adjust to every one of them. I remember when Forrest Griffin fought Anderson Silva, and he lost that fight. Now, when you lose the fight, you're supposed to walk out of the ring, follow me down the hall, back to the dressing rooms, get checked by the doctor. Well, he didn't do that. He lost that fight. He jumped over the cage and took off. And I had to chase him. And I didn't know where he was going, and he didn't know where he was going, but he was running. And he didn't go in the direction that we came out of. He just went through the crowd and went back. He took off, and I went behind it. And finally, I just kept, I wasn't chasing him because I already had, I have guys set up to bring the next guy out. So I had my guys in place. I just followed behind him until he got tired of running. Because if I had chased him, he'd have probably ran faster. Okay? Or probably have gone a different. Finally, he decided he wasn't. And I let him do what he wanted to do to get over it and to get it out of his system. And he did.
Yeah. So while we're on that topic, so I remember in our little pre-fight meetings, you'd be like, listen, after your fight, go back to your locker room, chill out, relax. I don't want you guys out in the stadium.
For real.
Were there any problems with that ever?
Well, there was, because guys always, and the only reason, and I'll say this now, the only reason I ever really said that was because at the time, they weren't giving me tickets. You know, I eventually worked my way up to getting tickets where I had a spot for you guys to sit. Because initially they wanted to sell every seat in that arena.
Right.
So there was no place for you guys to sit. So I would tell you, go back, go to the locker room, go sit down. And the next thing I'd know, I'd be in the back and somebody would come to me. One of the ushers would come to me and say, Mr. Burt, we got a couple of your guys out there sitting in somebody's seat and they're afraid to go sit down. They were afraid to come back and tell you guys to get up out of their seats. And I would walk over and I would just stop at this and just look. I didn't have to say anything. You know, they just dropped their heads and got up, went on back in the room. They knew they were wrong. But if they went out and sat in somebody's seat and that person came back, that person did not go over there and tell you guys to get out of their seat. Right. They went straight to security and said, you got to help me. You guys were not going to do anything to anybody, but you know, you wanted to watch the fight. So I eventually worked my way into getting a monitor in every room, and eventually worked my way into getting monitors I had to work my way up to all those things. Monitors in the back room, monitors in every room, because everything was costly. And they were watching everything, and they were watching me. You know, they didn't tell me what to do or how to do it, but they sure had their eyes on it, baby.
Yeah.
When you leave there, was there like an understudy from you that steps in and takes over your role?
During the course of my time there, I trained a total of 30 guys. And each fight, I had 4 to 5 guys working with me, but all those guys had other jobs. So I had to alternate. So I had a system and I taught everybody how to do my system. So everybody there around me knew exactly it was rotation in place. I learned that in the military. I was in the Marine Corps and it was rotation in place. When I moved out of place, you knew how to slide in there and slide out.
Got you. If someone got sick or wasn't feeling good or family
wasn't there, then someone else would come. And I rotated those guys so that I very seldom got caught in an event with everybody that didn't know what the hell they were doing.
Right.
You know, and that happened. The bigger the event, it seemed like the less somebody knew what the hell they were doing. You know, I had events with 3 people that knew what they're doing, and I had events with 8 people and nobody knew what the hell. But we made it work because I as you know, I kept a tight grip on most of it, on most of you guys and what you guys were doing, because once everything else was going on, the only thing that mattered is that you guys were in the cage.
Right.
Not to say that they didn't care, but they figured Burt Watson had that settled. You know, so all we got to do is they had a backstage manager, and all he did was come to the main entrance, the walkout, and that was it. I had to have everybody there on time, in place, on cue, in set, and hold you guys there while they moved.
Did you have anything like, so there's like a production team there that films everything? Totally. Like they were going off of what you wrote down?
Well, no, they had a script, a production schedule, which was maybe anywhere from 4 to 7 pages of everything timed out. The time that they started, if there was a cue for a commercial, a cue for buffer, a cue for one of the cage girls to get in, they had that. And every fight, if we started at 4 o'clock, the first fight was in the cage no later than 4:04, no later. The next fight had to be in the cage no later than 4:28. And I memorized that. I memorized every time by name. Like Bermudez was the third fight. We started at 4 o'clock. I know Bermudez had to be in that ring by 5:15, 5:16. So I remembered and memorized. I didn't get smart till I got older, okay? I memorized your fight and your time. And I knew I knew who you fought. So whoever was the blue corner, the first guy out, I had his name, I memorized his time, and you had to be in there specifically at that time.
So when a fight, so like when whatever production team gives you like the scripts,
yes,
right? It's all based on every bout going the full length time.
Yes.
Right. So when someone gets knocked out in the first round, does that just give you like, all right, we can like kind of let our hair down for a second, to be like on top of it, or would you kind of scoop people up a little bit so you'd have a little time later, or?
Well, I had to be on guard because they had pay-per-view or television time. So if they saw that they had extra time to do something, maybe
run the counter promo.
Yes. Or maybe Dana's birthday or your birthday or somebody, or let's talk about this. And they would always tell the stage manager to tell me, I always told them I needed, that's all I needed, was 5 minutes. I would memorize the schedule, but I still needed 5 minutes. If you started at 4:04 and your fight's supposed to go to 4:28, and by 4:06 that fight was done because you had a first round knockout or whatever, then we had about 15 or 20 minutes, supposedly. But then in the truck or someplace else, they might decide to change that schedule and flip it around, and they would let me know. But you guys never.
You have a headset on, right?
No, I never wore a headset because I didn't like it. But I had my guys, all my guys.
Heidi would have a headset on.
Yes, had on headsets or walkies, and I communicated back and forth with them. But the one thing I never wanted to do, that if I let them, they would have, I never ever had you guys in a holding area more than 2 minutes or more than 3 minutes. Didn't want that to happen.
Like in the
holding area, in the walkout. When you left the dressing room and you stood there, blue corner and red corner, I made sure you never stood in that holding area more than 5 minutes. Now, if you think about it, but if I didn't control that or paid attention to that, you would have been, or a fighter would have been, could have been, if they had a first round knockout and was preparing for the regular 3 rounds, or the 28 minutes, they would say, bring a guy to the holding area, bring a guy to the holding area. Bring him in. I would say, when are we starting? Bring him in. No, I'm not bringing him in. When are we starting? I would make them give me a time so that I would at least not be running back and forth and have you guys sitting in the holding area. And believe me, I learned that the hard way. But I learned everything once. Okay.
That holding area, I don't know, I could say for a fighter or as a cornerman, that holding area, you can cut that tension with like a fucking knife.
Yeah.
It is, man, it's like, because I'd be probably like 25, 30 yards. My opponent would be like waiting to go through the thing, but there was like he said, there was like a couple minutes where I would just be like a fucking tiger on that guy. Like, if you look over here, just know I'm going to fucking eat you. And your corner's kind of behind you. They're just like, pop up. Their corner's kind of looking at them like, fuck you guys. You know what I mean? Like,
what you looking at? What you looking at? It
is like the most.
Oh, man, I am so glad.
My question is, like, when you would be walking through there, would you be like, oh damn, you could like feel it in the air? I don't know if it's the same for you because you're working and you're.
Yeah. Well, if you noticed, I was always at a high level. My intensity level was always as much as yours, as much as you got. Yes,
I used to feed off that shit.
That was a question I had for you, Dennis. Do you remember?
I don't know if it's gonna be the same.
Everybody, I use that because I also wanted to get you guys fired up. Because I needed you fired up. I needed you to stay fired up. I didn't need you because you spent a lot of time in that dressing room. You guys were in their dressing room 2.5 hours. I didn't need that to feel like 2.5 hours. I needed that energy
as soon as I got in there.
And so when you guys got in the holding area, it was probably the most intense time ever. and I would walk and look each one of you right in the eye. I would put each one of you right in front of me, right in front of me. If you're pacing back and forth, I'd pace with you because I needed me to be your focus and not everybody else around you. Right. Because like you said, you standing there and your opponent's right there, you wanted to eat him right there.
In my head, Burt would come in my locker like, we rolling! Like, get that money. I'm like, he wants me to win. He's looking in the eyes. He wants me to win. I just know. I'm like, fuck this other guy. Burt's on my team.
For real. Your night, your fight, get it right, baby.
Yeah.
You know? But
where did these slogans come from? You just over time
just over time, I it ain't but two, him and you. You know, this is what we doing while we do it, baby. You know, well, that was, can I say that?
Yeah, you can say what you can curse.
It was, what happened was, and there was a fight, and it was, I think, maybe BJ Penn and George St. Pierre or one of them, the official said one of the guys had too much Vaseline on. So I had to go and rub it down and take it off of him in the middle. And I wasn't going to let that happen again. So that's why I told everybody, I said, listen, I told the cornerman, because guys, you know, they have a way to, hey, you know, up under here, in between the finger, behind the ears, you know, and I'd say, listen, you know, I don't want anybody in this room to have any Vaseline. I don't want Vaseline on your hand, on your back, in your crack, on your ears, up your nose. I don't want Vaseline, petroleum jelly, KY jelly, peanut butter and jelly, Ben Gay, Gay Ben, fish grease, fish and grits, fish oil, nothing. I just got myself psyched up.
But you would just say that, repeat sometimes twice a week.
Yeah. And that was, you know what, that was a fun way of telling you that I didn't want you to have Vaseline at the cage.
The point was very clear.
No Vaseline. And I had to figure out a good way to tell you that, because guys kept it. Guys came in with Vaseline. You know, in some of them had the small, some of them had the big jar, but it was in there and they used it for other things. But I wanted you to know that I was watching for it on your back, in your crack, under your arm, up your nose. Don't do it. So I have no idea. I didn't sit down and write that script out. Trust me. It came, but you know, you guys all knew it, and guys adhered to it. And if I saw it, sometimes I'd be walking in the holding area. That's why I had everybody together. I'd walk by, I'd look in the bucket, I'd check a guy's, you know, his mouthpiece, check his gloves, check the other guy's gloves. I always put your gloves in my hand just to feel, because I've had guys
in boxing, right?
Yes, put Vaseline on gloves. I've had guys have Vaseline inside of the hand wrap, just you know, for whatever reason. But I learned that. But I also learned a lot of that stuff since the time I was with Joe Frazier and being in the gym with Joe Frazier and all of his sons and his nephews and his daughter and Muhammad Ali's daughter and just working in different gyms. I got to see, because I actually came from the fashion industry. That's where I first started. I went to FIT. I went to school for fashion designing, and you know, so that transition from that to MMA or boxing was. But I'm gonna tell you, when I went back from fashion to boxing, I went back to the hood, baby, because it was all gut. It was, you know, in the gym, man, the stuff I saw in the gym and the stuff the guys used to do in the gym and the fights that the guys had, but it was a part of the culture. It was a part of the system. Right. You know, I had to learn that these were fighters. The trainers were fighters. and that's what. But when I came from boxing to MMA, it was a total different world. Yeah. You guys in MMA, and I've said this a couple of times, and I've made a couple of boxing people around me mad, but it was a totally different. The majority of the guys,
apples and oranges. They're both fighting.
Oh yeah. But it was. I mean, you guys train at each other's gym. You guys use one guy for grappling, one guy for stand up, one guy for jiu-jitsu. You share gyms. Yeah. And you might share the gym with a guy you're going to fight.
Yeah.
That didn't happen in boxing. If you had a gym, you stayed in your gym. If your gym was on 5th Street, you didn't go on 8th Street. You stayed on 5th Street. And then when I got to MMA, I came there with that attitude that I got to really watch these guys and keep it. But when these guys, they were same workouts and very respectful. But the martial arts and wrestling, you guys taught to work with each other. You were taught to work out with each other. And the respect it was a whole different world. It was two different worlds. I came from boxing from the hood where it was, you know what? If you brought your grandma in there, she better know how to fight.
I mean, for me, it's just common sense off the jump. I don't care what realm. Like, yeah, I'm going to fight this guy. I want to get paid to do it. So to do it for free out in the open and maybe get the fight canceled is just insane to me. Like,
I don't think we ever talked about this, Dennis. Have you ever fought someone you trained with?
No.
Nope. No, and that was I have had situations where guys fought guys that they trained with. I can't remember right off the top of my head, but I always sat down and had conversations with you guys, and I always say, fighting for free hurts for nothing, and it's overrated. So you don't do that shit for free, not when you can get paid for it. But I would always sit down and talk to you guys when you came in, and I got to know the guys that worked out with each other, the guys that didn't necessarily, I won't say get along, but listen, man, I'm gonna fight this guy a year from now. I'd rather not be in the same workout room. I listen to that stuff, and that's the way I set up the workout rooms and the dressing rooms, especially the dressing room. You guys never went to a dressing room and didn't want to go in it. But if you had walked into a dressing room and there was a guy's name on there that maybe you had just fought or you're getting ready to fight, something would draw you to see that. And I got to know that during the course of the week, so that by the end of the week, when I made the dressing rooms up, I had that in mind. I had to have that in mind. And that's how I had, because very few arenas were set up for MMA. The dressing rooms were all set up for boxing, because boxing, you stand up and you hit the mitts. You didn't have to lay down and no sharp edges, and you had to have a lot of space to roll. I got there with MMA and I'm like, where are your dressing rooms? You're in it. Okay. And I'm like, this is not going to work. How am I going to, but you know what? I had to make it work. I had to make it work. Because when they brought me there, the one thing that Dana White or no one ever did, they always left it up to me and never questioned what I did or how I did it.
Right.
But when they came there, it needed to be right. And you guys, it was the same thing with you guys. I didn't
need. The thing is, like, if I'm fighting you, right, if you have the same dressing room as I do, then it's fair. And we're both preparing the same area. So if one guy has this huge room, the other guy doesn't, that's where, it'd be a little weird.
Yeah. Well, I made sure that it was, it worked out, or you guys didn't get to see it. And I made sure that you guys, no one knew what everyone else was going on.
Because there was a period too, Stan, you probably don't know this, where like the undercard would fight, and then we'd be kind of kicked out of the locker room, so like the main event could come in and use those same locker rooms.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and that was being creative with the spaces, you know, and that was also the that was not a good situation, but the best part of that situation was it gave credence to and reason why I needed tickets for you guys to go sit down and watch.
Right.
You know, I said, what am I going to do with these guys? You know, there's not enough space. I can't have them sit in there. Because they never had less than 10 fights on a card.
Right.
That's 20 guys, 20 fighters. Each fighter with a minimum of 3 people. So that's, you know, and when you guys came in and sat down in a dressing room, you spread out. One guy in MMA took up 3 spaces that they would in fighting because you guys spread it out. And you sat down, and you guys needed to roll around in that little area that you were in. So I had to get very creative with it. But I did. I made it work, and that was the last thing you needed on your head.
Yeah.
I always said, ain't but 2, him and you. So I didn't need you to get that on your head. The dressing rooms were too small or they were too cold. You know, I always made sure temperature was from 63 and higher.
After I would fight, there was always someone in the crowd that like, yo, come sit with me. Like, there's extra, you know, if it wasn't a sold out arena. I remember Connor versus Chad Mendez. I had to watch it from because it was sold out. There wasn't even like
probably up in.
No, I had to watch it from the locker room.
I got you.
Yeah, there wasn't even a seat to, you know.
Yeah. It was the growth of the sport was and still is phenomenal. I mean, I had never seen a thing grow as fast. And my first boxing event ever was March 8th, 1971. And Joe Frazier fought Muhammad Ali in New York. Madison Square Garden. And that was huge. But then I came to MMA, but then in between, I did De La Hoya, I did the Klitschko brothers, I did Roy Jones, I did Bernard Hopkins, I worked with Tito Trinidad, I did Tyson's last six fights. I did Tyson's last 6 fights. And I got to MMA and didn't know what it was. I'm going to tell you, man, that thing had legs from the beginning. The first, maybe from UFC 30 to UFC 35, 40 or so, it started. And it just, I remember the first big event or the one I remember because I ran my legs off was in Toronto, I think it was at the Rogers Center. It was 55,000 people or 53,000, whatever.
Rounded
but
up.
That was crazy. And I had to literally run that arena by myself. And when I say by myself, because the guys that I brought on, it was kind of new to them, and they were just getting things done and watching you guys.
Want something done right? You do it yourself. So you want this shit to run like perfect. You're like, yeah, can you do it? Oh, you know what? I'll just do it. You know.
Well, you know what? It had to be. There were times that I might have, you know, done maybe a little more than I needed to, but you know what? I was already there. Right. You know, it's like, man, you're in the middle of the round. You don't stop when you don't hear the bell. You know, they tell you to keep your hands up at all times, and you keep going at all times. You just don't, because he stopped, you figure, oh, I'm gonna walk away.
Because that Joe's gonna make you cry.
Never, ever, ever, ever leave it to the judges. You leave it to the judges, I can guarantee you, son, they'll make you cry. But I knew that. Yes. I know. But I always said it. I always told y'all, Don't leave that shit to the judges.
I tried my best to not leave it to the judges.
Don't leave it to the judges.
So, Burt, so we talk about it a lot, like what guys are getting paid in the UFC and stuff like that. And Stan has this reference where he says the UFC or MMA is still in the leather helmets era of football.
In terms of
would
pay.
You say when are the UFC players going to make NFL money, if ever?
Well, there's a lot of variables in that now. In the day and age of television and television money and what promoters get out of their television contracts, it's I remember during the era in boxing when you had Mike Tyson, you had Evander Holyfield, or when you had Ray Leonard and Roberto Duran, and during those era or the De La Hoya era, you had maybe 4 boxers making 90% of the money, or 5 boxers making 90% of the money. I did a Tyson fight where Tyson maybe got $5-10 million, and there was a guy on that card that got $100 a round and fought a 4-round fight.
Per round? They get paid, boxers?
Well, back then.
They still do that.
Then they got.
It's crazy.
Say it again.
They still do that. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, I would imagine
like
that.
If you're a feeder.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like going to Nigeria.
Oh yeah. They got. I remember when they got $35-50 a round. Then it went to $50. Then it went to $100 a round. And then you had the guy at the main card making $5 million. And here's a guy that fought a 4-round fight and got $400. And they might have taken some money out of that for food. Possibly. But then I came to MMA, and the money was a lot less, but it seemed like everybody was making about the same thing. Now, I'm going back from 2000 to 2016, where it started around maybe 2010.
Ronda had a $3 million fight.
Yeah, then it started going a little, but then it was still pretty balanced out where, guys making $3 million, the lower end of the guy was making maybe 15,000, 10,000, or, it wasn't 4 million to 400.
Right.
Okay. It wasn't like that. I don't know exactly what it is now. I know what I hear and but I always thought that the pay scale was comparable across the board.
I agree.
Because there was nobody making 5-10 million and a guy down here making 500.
Now, what are your thoughts on the pay scale being based off of your following? Because that's the thing.
I don't agree with that.
Me neither.
Well, with that question, the pay scale is never going to change. It's a tough topic to talk about, and they'll never get to the NFL or NBA level 2 ways, unless they get a union or unless they can amend the Ali Act to go to boxing, to go to MMA. And even then, you see boxing still fucked up too, where like Floyd Mayweather can say, no, I want more money or I want the lion's share because he's such a big name. But he got fucked to get to that big name. You know what I mean? Like boxing's still really fucked up. Like NFL.
And that's what I said. Even back in my day, it was the disparity was, I told you there was 3 or 4 guys making 85 to 90% of the money, which it was, in the Muhammad Ali Act, it came out and I don't want to be totally quoted on it, but I think initially that was for disclosure because fighters and they had no idea about how much money the promoter was making, how much money he was being paid by the television or nothing like that. So I guess, they started, let's just start disclosing that and giving an idea so we'll know how to negotiate. So the Muhammad Ali Act came out and it was for disclosure and it brought all of that to the surface. Will MMA or boxing or whatever get to NBA money and NFL money? I don't think that's going to happen.
I agree with you, and I think another reason too is because some of those dudes can be in the NBA for 20 years. You can't fight professionally for 20 years.
But not only that, Dennis, but the television contracts and the television money and the sponsorship money for the NBA and the NFL and Major League Baseball is so huge.
Yeah.
And you don't have that same kind of sponsorship and television revenue.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, in
MMA.
time.
Well, a way you can look at it too is the UFC is equivalent to the size of probably one team. Like if the UFC sold for $4 billion, the Yankees are probably worth more than $4 billion. You know what I mean?
One team. Yes.
Yeah, one team.
Yeah.
One good team. Like there's probably other teams that are worth less than a billion or whatever, but one team. So think of a baseball team. They have 25 or 40 guys on their roster. That's 40 millionaires. How many guys on the UFC roster? 600. So they would need to, how many times over do they need to get over that 4 billion mark?
Those guys making 40 million and 20 million and 30 million a year. And I saw just this morning, I saw what the top 5 quarterbacks were making in the NFL, and the lowest was 33 million up to 45 million a year. It started
it would be a union though. You guys had a union, then you guys can go, all right, that 4 billion, at least 2 billion of it's ours to split up amongst us. Or how much you guys
are in and out so often. You know what I mean?
They tried maybe back in 2004 or 2005. I remember a group of guys got together and was trying to put together a fighters union.
Did not like that.
Everyone got blackballed pretty much, yeah.
That's why I didn't mention no names.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, they definitely didn't. But the guys had gotten together, and there was about 4 of them that started, and they started, and it started to catch on, but you got to have consistency, you got to have leadership, and you got to have people that are determined to get the job done for something like that to succeed.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have that, you're not going to get to the $40 and $50 million a year.
Yeah, and they take care of the champions, I'm sure. So what it would take probably is John Jones, Conor, Poirier, like some big names that they have right now being like, yeah, I'm not fighting next month. Give us this amount of money. Like it would take big names to sign on. I remember.
And they'd have to be consistent with it and support.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen if just one guy is running, then they're going to say it, oh, he just running his mouth, so let's just shut him up. Okay, we just won't give him another fight, or we just won't, but I've always been one that organizing together and working together has always been in my culture. It's always been in my head and in my brain. And but the guys have to want to do it together and not just get that paycheck and go home. I got mine, you get yours. If it stays like that, it's not gonna happen.
What you should do is if you're in the UFC still after 10 fights with if you're still in the UFC after 10 fights, all right, now you're this next you're gonna be around.
You know what they do, and I'm not sure if they're still doing it, but I know that they paid bonuses based on the amount of fights that you had. I mean, there was a $50,000 bonus for the winner or whatever, but there was other when they brought on Reebok, I think, or some of the other sponsorship, they started giving sponsorship money and bonuses based on the amount of fights that you had and how long you had been in the UFC.
Before Reebok?
This was, I don't want to get it totally wrong, but I think even now that guys are getting a certain kind of bonus that's based on the amount of fights and the amount of time they've been in the UFC. I don't know exactly
That's
what it is or what
that's
it's
the
called.
agreement with Reebok, but now
Yes.
they haven't unveiled Venom, which is going to be their new apparel company. I don't know why.
Yes.
Not yet.
I heard that. I heard that Venom was but Venom has been around for a long time, and Reebok beat them out because they didn't just come to the world of MMA or just started. They've been around. I remember
They were number 3 in basketball for 20 years in my head. Yeah, for a minute.
Really?
Yeah. Yes.
Reebok,
Yes.
yeah. So probably.
No, Reebok, but not Venom. I'm like, Venom's got to be emptying the bank account to
Not
be
Venom,
sponsoring
no.
the UFC.
Well, Venom just did a big contract with Walmart, so I'd imagine that's where they got that nut. If they gave the UFC something,
I was about to say that somewhere along the line, they've got some partnerships somewhere to be able to take over a Reebok contract.
Yeah.
But, again, sometimes, and I'll say this, is that sometimes you pay for names or branding, and sometimes the name and the branding doesn't always say there's a ton of money behind it. A brand has been established.
Yeah, I think this whole thing is probably total control for the UFC. They don't have to deal with Reebok, and Reebok is like a subsidiary of Adidas now, and they don't have to deal with
Really?
7 or 6 people answering their thing. It's probably Dana with one phone call to the Venom guy, like, this is what I need. This is what I want. This is what we're doing. We're going to design it. It's not Reebok designing the UFC press kit.
Well, I knowing Dana White like I know him, I don't think it was ever too much any other way with anybody. I don't think that even with Reebok, because there was a couple of times, and I remember when Reebok first came in and started just a little at a time. I got a couple of pairs. They just started 1 meeting, 2 meetings, then they started wanting the fighters to come to the meeting. And then the fighters started balking a little bit because they didn't want to, they didn't, why do we have to have a meeting in the middle of the week for some clothing?
Right.
That was their thing to me. And I was absolutely the right person to listen, but the wrong person to hear. Okay. Because I was told that this is the direction that we're going and the fighters need to be there. And whatever you need to do to put it in their schedule, it needs to be in their schedule.
Yeah.
You know what? I did that.
And then you probably have a
They
bunch
started
of
getting like a little weird towards the end there. Like at least of my like if a trainer went down there and got like another pair of shoes, whatever, they would like take it off your like.
Really?
Your money. Yeah.
Really?
Like, yeah. They started getting like very nitpicky. I'm like, dude, you guys good? You guys hurt or like?
So I left and the shit just fell apart. Okay, I hear you.
I remember being like, oh man, like my shoes are soaked from cutting weight. Like, can I get another pair of shoes to wear out? And they're like,
yeah.
They hooked it up. Because I'm like, sweetheart. They're like, but like, don't tell anyone.
But initially, they were giving that stuff away. When that Reebok deal first started, I was a little pissed because they actually had a one of the rooms. Like if I went to an arena and I had 8 rooms to work with for dressing rooms, now I only had 7 because one room was the Reebok room, and they gave you whatever you went in there and you got until it ran out. They had a pack for everybody, but then the extra stuff they wanted everybody to wear. So anybody that went in there, not that they were just throwing stuff, but then that kind of changed a little, got a little different as time went on, and it kind of backed up a little bit. But I can guarantee you, they sold that business for $4 billion. Yeah, they made some money. Trust me.
Yeah. What is Burt doing now? What's Burt Watson doing now?
Are you still with CFFC?
No. Well, what happened was there was an organization that came along called Alliance, and the job what Alliance, the objective was to take all of the regional promotions that they can, put them under one umbrella and, compete with the UFC for space, television, venues. So I joined Alliance, and they brought CFFC and all of that. And then in between that, they started chopping different organizations off and different managers off. So I stayed with Alliance because, number one, I was tired of traveling at the time. I was tired of traveling. I wanted to stay home. I live in Philadelphia and I wanted to stay in Philly. So I did. And eventually, when the Alliance dissolved, they put their money in somebody's wrong hands because that money disappeared. Okay? The money disappeared. So I decided at that time, I said, you know what? I'm going to do what I do, but I need to use my own name. So I started Burt Watson Promotions, and I did my first promotion in Fort Lauderdale in 2019, June, with the very first fight that I promoted that I had under Burt Watson Promotion. I did my own. And from that fight, we were 300 people shy of a sellout in that arena, which was excellent for your first fight.
Yeah.
And I got 4 dates from that one fight because of the success level. The first date was supposedly last year, March 13th, June 12th, September 25th, and this February 13th. But we all know COVID came along.
We were on our own show as well.
Yes, it just chopped everything down. So I ended up staying at home, and I couldn't travel. Couldn't get on a plane. So, because I was home, I started doing I do what you guys do. I started doing a podcast called Legends to Legends. And it's where I sit and I talk with legends such as yourself.
I'm ready to come on whenever you want.
Guys that are well, you owe me one now.
Yep.
So, with guys who have been in and out of the sport, and, I've done, I got one out now with Rampage. I did Vitor Belfort. I did Randy Couture. And that's what I'm doing now. And it's on MMA Junkie. And it's called Legends to Legend. And that's basically what I'm doing. But whatever I do from here on is under Burt Watson Promotions, because the only thing I got left, baby, is my name. And it's my night. It's my fight. I got to get it right, baby. And that's basically what I'm doing. But because of the way things are now, everybody is doing the best that they can from a location. Even all the television shows now are all being StreamYard or streamed out, So, but I'm excited about it. I'm looking to get some sponsors and put some things together, but as soon as we can get out of this house and get on the road, I got 10 good years left, baby. And I'm going to use every one of them.
And yes, every one of them. You have a home here on Menace and the Man. Always. We would love to do story time with Burt. Anything you ever want to do, drop us.
I love that. I love that. Dennis the Menace. Yeah. I love that. But
so obviously you still watch fighting, right?
Yes. Yes.
Were you a fan of it before you got into it, or you became a fan, or?
I was a fan of boxing. I was a fan of boxing, and then when I transitioned from boxing to MMA, I became a fan. And I became a fan because the guys, fighters have a fraternity. And they only let certain people in there. And you guys let me in there. And I loved it. I became an automatic fan. My grandkids are fans. I got 5 grandchildren, man. And they're all fans. My granddaughters, they all watch it.
Any potential fighters, or
no. My son, but he got too big. My son is 6'4", and he weighs like right now probably about 280. Maybe 300 pounds. I don't know where the hell that came from, but he's mine. Okay, I do know that. But he played football. He played football. He was pretty good. And right now he coaches. Tell you how he is now the head wrestling coach at Ridgewood High in Ridgewood, New Jersey.
Okay.
And my other daughter is a advisor in Patterson, New Jersey. So they're all educators and they all work in athletics. So my whole family is in and involved. And I'm sure you remember my wife. She was at every single fight, sitting in the front row and cheering. I never knew who she was cheering for, but she was rolling and knew everybody.
No, because we were talking about boxing. You don't go to the same gym. So Usman versus Gilbert Burns just happened this past weekend.
Yes.
Well, I mean, because you know both those guys a little bit, right?
Yes.
That was, for me, I'm sitting there like, I was, just because I had gotten up early Saturday, I had my kids, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm watching the fight. I'm into them, but I kind of dozed off, right? I kind of come to, and it's Gilbert and Usman walking out. I'm like, all right, I'm kind of like doing this. The fight happens. I'm up till 4 o'clock in the morning. Like, dude, what the fuck?
Wow.
Like that fight happening. I was just like, I think because the emotional ties and the actual fight itself, I was like, holy shit.
Well, you become emotionally involved, and I've been in it long enough to see you guys develop. And to see, I mean, I was in when you came in as a rookie and you retired doing, you know, and that's the life I've had. And I've seen the guys. So, you know, my love for the sport, you know, it just grows and it keeps going. And I see these guys fighting and the hype they get for the fight. And I usually, I can tell and I know, let me tell you something. Sometimes with anybody, when the lights go on, some people's lights go out.
Yes.
Yeah.
They can get dim, but they shouldn't go out. Sometimes you got to fight where a guy, Conor McGregor, is used to them lights being on. And he did it real quick. They'll never go out. Somebody else that's fighting him or anybody of that level could get in there and those lights go out real quick. Okay? You know, because the lights are so bright. And that has a real effect. It's like your first fight in the UFC. If you can remember what that was like.
Yeah.
And the first time I screamed in your ear that we was rolling. You know, it's those lights are on. Your lights got to stay on. But sometimes the lights go on, some people's lights go on. It's all right to get dim, but they can't go out. And that is a natural fact. So you always pay attention to that. And a lot of people don't pay attention to it. And, you know, they call fights one way or another, but there's a lot to say for a guy fighting in the UFC or Bellator or PFL, you know, or LFA. There's a lot to fighting. And the bigger the lights, not the arena, not the crowd, the brighter the lights, the dimmer the wall.
Burt, when's the book coming out?
I'm working on it.
I mean, he's seen it all. You know what I mean? Like,
whether you say that, I'm working with the guy. I'm gonna tell you, I'm 72 years old, bro, and I just sat down with the guy not too long ago to talk about doing a book. And
is the title of the book going to be Babysitter to the Stars?
I haven't thought of that yet. You know,
is it a biography? Is it you?
Well, it's going to be a combination of both, because just like I'm sitting and talking to you guys, I've got stories to tell, I think, and I learned a lot of lessons that I can give out, and I can express. You know, I've always learned that nothing anybody says to me is irrelevant. If you say it to me, it's because you want me to hear it, not just to listen, but I need to hear it, because when you hear it, you digest it.
Right.
And there's lessons in that. And that's what I if I were, to lay out a book or to put things out, I'd like it to be lessons. But, it's the one thing that I've gotten in my life.
Organizing it.
Yes.
It's just like, where do you start?
It is. But a good thing about that, I'm a hood rat. So I know how to hold shit, it's easier, and when you know how to be, men in general are very creative when it comes to certain things. You know what I'm talking about. You get very creative. You learn how, no doesn't mean no. You get slapped to the left and you duck around and you come back up to the right, smiling, skinning and grinning, because that creativity works.
Oh, stop, no.
But there's a lot, and I've seen a lot, and a lot of things that, people ask me sometimes what some of the greatest fights I've ever been to, I think one of the biggest things for me is to have seen the growth of female athletes in this sport.
Yeah.
That was amazing for me, man. And I sat back and watched it. But I always heard that would never happen.
Yeah.
I remember watching while I was fighting, like, audio.
It would never happen. It would never happen. It would never be. And the women that I saw develop, and the way that I saw, when by the time the women came in, because when MMA first started, I come from boxing. You throw a jab. MMA wasn't straight jabbing, and they knew how to stand up. You learned how to hit the pad and hit the miss. When women came in, it was like they knew. They were standing up and boxing and striking and pop, 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 and going to town. The bell would ring, they met in the middle of the ring, and they didn't leave that middle of the ring until the bell rang again.
Yeah. When I train people, like, if you give me a girl that's never boxed and a guy that never boxed, I want to train the girl all day long, because she'll get it way quicker, because she's not trying to kill the bitch. She's listening to you. She's not like guys like, what? I don't know. And they're just like, bro, relax.
Yeah, you don't know what you're doing. Yeah.
Right.
You don't know what you're doing. Annoying. Let me tell you, and then show me that you listen.
Right. But Usman jab this past weekend?
Yes.
Ridiculous.
Well, and that's what I just said. The guys learned how, when UFC 30 and 31, they was hitting like this. And I know they're going to be mad at me, but I don't care. That's okay.
Right.
But then they went from this to this. I mean, I see guys in there now. I mean, you don't know whether they're boxers or MMA guys, because they got the technical skill levels are unbelievable. It's jab, 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 boom. And then you go boom, boom, and then you got to put hands on it.
Right. Now, I had a decent jab. I just have short arms. Like, Usman's arms are so long and he uses his range so efficiently with the footwork. It's just like, man. Yeah, but Burns was coming out quick early, and I was like, oh, this is like good.
Well, again, the lights came on. And when that bell rang, Burns was out there. Right. You got 5 more to go, baby.
Right. I did see that. I was like,
and that wasn't usually him. He wasn't usually like that, but he did.
Come out and like,
yeah. And you know what it did? What it does when you have a guy come at you real quick, right away, it puts you in a defensive, and you're resting because you're stopping it. You're stopping it, and he came out real quick. And what was it? 3rd round or whatever?
3rd round, yeah, was
Usman said that's how the sparring used to go. Gilbert would come with these wild hooks, sometimes catch him, but for the most part, he said he would just be sticking Gilbert with those long jabs and those straights, and Gilbert's a little bit more wild. Yeah. I thought Gilbert would have caught him and had a little more.
He gets that opportunity again. Gilbert gets that opportunity again. I can tell you, it would be different. And everybody says it. Give me an opportunity again, it'll be different. I know now. I understand. And, you know, you only understand when it's over, when it's done. Usman, I was amazed, you know. I mean, some guys, you know, you jab and you keep that out there. You can't jab and keep this out there. You gotta keep going, man. You gotta keep this back.
Yeah.
Because you either keep it back or keep it down. One of the two. You don't put it all out there. But you know, I think, and I think he understood his pace. He said, I heard him in an interview say something about he rushed or he was out there.
He went Cody Garbrandt. He said he rocked.
Is that what he said?
He said he went full blown Cody Garbrandt. He said he rocked him early and then just started swinging too heavy. And he said he was blown up and gassed by the first round, you know?
Well, I remember it was like a quarter of the way in the second round, he like stopped for a second and he was like, and I was like, oh shit, I think he's processing like, I'm kind of tired now.
Yeah. And then after, I know the moment you're talking, and then he threw that lazy jab out there and Usman went, oh, here's the two right over the top. Boom.
Yeah, and that's called to take it with you. Because you throw that jab and somebody will say, yeah, take this with you.
Take this back. Yep.
Yeah. You know, Brian Stan and Vitor Belfort and maybe a little bit of Vanderlei. I think the quickest hands that I've seen in hand speed.
Brian Stan up there?
Huh?
Brian
Yeah.
Stan's on that list?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Because when I say hand speed, you know, guys, you need that hand speed when somebody's coming in at you. When the jab is not always speed. It's reach and distance and connecting. And once you hit a guy with a jab, you can almost keep it out there because you got that range. You got it. And he's going to be a little timid. But that range from here to here, that's hand speed. Not always from here to there. If you noticed Muhammad Ali, you know, he was the only guy. Yes, but he was the only guy I knew that threw a jab and reached. He reached out. I mean, but he did it because he did this and he did this real easy. Real easy. And then what he did this, and he backed up. You know, he shuffled back a little bit and had his hands up. But I put Brian's, there was one fight, I forgot who he had, that backed him up against the rope, against the cage. And I think I counted 90 punches that Brian Stan. I can't remember who it was, whether it was Lieben or Vanderlei or.
I know Brian Stan and Vanderlei had a fight of the year where they sat in front of each other and just went punch for punch.
Okay. Maybe that was it.
Who'd you say, Menace?
And Vitor?
What's up?
Who'd you say, Menace?
It's Vanderlei versus.
They had a fight of the year, yes.
Right. They stole it from me and Matt Grice.
Maybe Alessio Sakara. The Alessio Sakara fight, I remember, was like a crazy. And then him versus Chris Lieben was one of those too, where he just threw it on.
That's what it was, Lieben. Yeah. It was Lieben. He fought Lieben, and that's where I get that when I put him up there, I threw out three names because those were the first three that come to my mind with the hand speed, you know, that really used it. And Vitor, I mean,
I just punched the camera and came back right. You didn't see it.
You know, Vitor was one of those guys that you know, he had pretty good hand speed.
I'd have to watch a Brian Stan fight to remember, but even you named Vitor and Anderson, those are two of the greatest counter punchers of all time. Like this, The second you cross the line, it's like bing, 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 and you're like, oh shit, I got hit 3 times. Right,
because like I said, that right there, that's the speed. The speed is not from here to there. It's from here to there. It's that short distance. You know, it's they used to teach guys, it's like catching flies. You know, like when you catch a fly, you don't do this. When you catch a fly, you catch it. You catch it. Pop. It's pop, pop. You know, and it's a very short distance in that. But man, I love it. I love it. I love, you know, I watch it now. I catch it as much as I can. Very often do I pay for it.
Yeah, I'm not. I feel like I should be given like a code.
Yeah, 100%.
Not that I give the code out to other people, but for me, my own personal. You know, they took my fight pass.
Well, let me tell you something. Dana said, I think I heard Dana say he's chasing people like that, and he's catching them.
Imagine if Dennis pirated the UFC and they arrested Dennis Bermudez for piracy of the UFC. It's like, my blood's been on the canvas, dude. The fuck are we doing here?
Wow. Dennis Bermudez hijacks 259.
One funny thing is Dana White said something like,
I don't do that.
Before the Conor fight, they asked Dana again about Dana, the whole piracy thing, what are you going to do? And Dana White was like, I have a guy. I'm waiting for the guy to go live. So many people will probably like, oh my God, is it me? Is it me?
And he actually said that guy they were looking for didn't do it this last fight. He said that the guy that we were chasing, he kind of got away from us because this last fight we didn't. Somehow but they have always had something like that because UFC 52, I think it was, went in the dark. And when I say went in the dark, they were on pay-per-view, they were live, and I think Randy Couture was fighting or somebody, but that went in the dark from the first fight on the pay-per-view. From that point on, they started watching because they thought that they lost it because of the piracy, and that was a long time ago. But I'll never forget that. That I remember Dana and Lorenzo walking into the back. They were beat red, and I asked them what had happened, and I just heard that they had lost the effing signal. I didn't know what they were talking about because I still had guys go to the holding area. But you know, from that point on, I think they started watching.
Now, Burt, you say you watch fights still. Are you current with the new guys coming in, or they have to like get to a certain point and then catch your eye?
They've got. I am lost with a lot of the new guys coming in. I saw the roster of the fight that's coming up now, and I'm looking at the names. I'm like, and the only reason I know that they're UFC because I look down at the bottom and I see the sign. But a lot of the names.
We're gonna go over the main card of this weekend's fight. You game?
Say it again.
So we're gonna go over the main card of this coming weekend's fight.
Okay.
So first we got.
Well, wait. First, we got to go undercard. Just a couple fights. We got our homeboy Chaz Skelly fighting.
Oh, love Chaz Skelly.
Now,
Who do you got?
And I'd have to go with Chaz because I know Chaz. You know, when I say I know him, I usually go with the guys I know. Okay, right. I usually go with the guys I know. So I'll take Chaz on that one.
Here's what we do here, Burt.
There's actually some good ones on this other card.
Yeah, there's some real good. We go with the guys who have been on the show. So if you've been on the show, we got you. We don't care who you fight.
We got you. We got you. Your night, your fight. We gonna get it right.
He's fighting Jamal Members, someone that he said he trained with before. So that should be an interesting one.
Okay.
We got Eddie Wineland's on the
underdog. Chaz is the underdog, though.
And who's Eddie Wineland fighting?
Eddie Wineland is fighting John Castaneda, a newcomer.
Eddie Wineland.
And Eddie is the underdog there, too.
Does he have the mustache still?
I believe so. This guy's only he's fighting only has one fight in the UFC. He's 0-1. So they're giving Eddie Wineland a newcomer to maybe pick up a win.
Well, he shouldn't lose that one.
We got Drakkar Close versus Luis Pena. That's a pretty good matchup.
I got Pena. Close all day.
Yeah. Close takes that one.
Okay.
Our boy Jared Gordon versus Danny Chavez. We're gonna go Jared Gordon all day.
Gordon, flash all day. I had him. When I say I had him, I worked with him before he went to the UFC.
Okay, yes. CFFC, right? You were there at that point?
Yes.
Yes, we love Jared here at Menace and the Man. Andre Arlovsky is fighting on this card as well.
Who is he fighting?
Tom Aspinall.
Hang on, I saw this guy. This guy has like crisp boxing. Like somebody threw like a lazy like jab. He went boom, like 1-2. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
How many fights has Arlovsky won in the last 4 fights?
This guy's 2-0 in the UFC with 2 quick stoppages, 2 first-round stoppages. Arlovsky, I think, might be coming off a win. Arlovsky is coming off 2 wins. He beat Felipe Lins, and Tanner Boser.
Okay.
I might be going Arlovsky now.
And this guy's a puncher?
This guy's tough, so they're both gonna stand on a pocket and probably swing at each other.
Arlovsky is the underdog in this fight, plus 200.
Okay, I'm gonna have to go with that one.
I mean, I'm going with I go off of, there's 3 ways to pick a fight: who you want to win, who you think's gonna win, and then where would you put your money?
Okay, I'll buy that. Now, let me tell you this. There is 15 ways to win a fight. Count them. There's about 15 different ways to win a fight. Okay? And the first one is conditioning.
Yeah.
Okay? You got a guy get past that first round, anything could happen. Everything is, oh my God.
When I see someone gas, or like any of the guys I work with, like, conditioning is the only thing you have complete control over going into a fight.
I'll agree with that. Your conditioning. I will totally agree with that. Because, again, the beginning of that is when the lights go on, some people's lights go out.
Yeah.
Never forget that.
So this could be the fight Arlovsky gets old. He is fighting a young guy, but he's one of those people I never want to pick against, Arlovsky.
Yeah.
Well, one thing about Arlovsky that I've always noticed, he's always been in pretty good condition. His conditioning has always been good, and he's never really had a problem with weight.
He's 42 going into this one. The guy he's fighting is 27. So
Arlovsky is 42?
42 and still doing it. This will be his 50th fight, 50th pro fight.
So I want Arlovsky to win.
Okay.
I think Tom Aspinall is gonna win. But I mean, plus 200. Arlovsky just has to hit it one time.
Yeah.
He's got that kind of power.
Aspinall is 2-0
in the UFC. Yeah, he's 9-2 overall. His 2 losses were a couple of years ago, so surging, if you will. This is probably the fight for the number 15 spot in the rankings. I don't know if Arlovsky's in the rankings right now, but Tapology has him at number 16.
Okay, let's give it to Arlovsky. Let's let him get it, Stan.
We got Nuosadrine Imavov versus Phil Hawes.
I gotta go with my buddy Phil. I've been with him a little bit down in Florida.
Yeah, I know Phil, so I'd go with Phil.
The guy he's fighting looks tough, but I've always heard amazing things about Phil Hawes. I know he was at Jackson Wink one time, or for a time he was like John Jones's secret. John Jones used to say, like, "Oh, I have this guy."
He fell short on the Contender Series, though, correct?
Yes, he lost. I think Julian Marquez, who just won that that fight this past weekend. You saw that, Menace?
Yes.
I think he hit.
Well, he was getting his butt kicked, and then got the
Anaconda,
right?
Yeah, 30 seconds left.
Standing.
Yeah.
So we got Alexi Olenek versus Chris Dawkins. You know Dawkins, right?
Dawkins, yes. I know him and his brother.
Yes, Dawkins is good.
I think I'm going to go with Dawkins.
Was he like a Dutch kickboxer?
Yes. I'd be totally surprised if he loses that.
He's from New Jersey, but he fights like a Dutch kickboxer. He has very good hands, Dawkins.
From New Jersey.
Because Olnek's thing is if he gets you on the ground, right?
Olnek's a bear on the ground, yeah. Didn't he?
I was going to say, he gets you, he smothers you. and that's where Dawkins is not good. Is not good on his back. Not that anybody is, but Dawkins really kind of gassed a little when he gets like that.
I mean, Olenek has a win over Verdun, so that's like you're pretty good on the ground, bro. If you're
Wow.
It's a split decision win, but it came last year. But still, if you're beating Verdun,
I'm going to go with Olenek. I just think, because the Duke could take a shot, I just think he's going to get to the ground. I think it ends there.
I'm going to root for Dawkins because he's from the Northeast.
I was going to say I'm going to take Dawkins because he's my man.
Derek Minner.
If I'm betting, I like Olenek too.
Derek Minner, Charles Rosa. We're going Charles Rosa.
We've had Charles Rosa on the show.
Yeah.
He's the favorite, almost by 2, right? He's
Charles Rosa.
Rosa's the favorite?
I think he is.
Yeah, I like that.
A negative 190.
Okay.
And Minor is a plus 150.
Rosa's a good chef, so we'll have to go with Rosa on that one.
Hang on, but Rosa's last fight, he got slaughtered, right?
No.
Or has he won some?
His last fight he won in a war. I forget who he beat, but the fight before that, the Bryce Mitchell fight, where his
Okay.
Bryce Mitchell.
Bryce Mitchell's a killer on the ground. He showed. So
yeah, he is.
Ketlin Vieira versus Yana Kunitskaya will be the co-main event at 135.
I've only seen Kunitskaya. I've never seen this other chick fight. I don't think. The Brazilian.
Which Brazilian is it?
This is Ketlin Vieira. Ketlin Vieira's got beat Ashley Evans Smith. She beat Sarah McMahon.
You know what? I kind of like her. Like her.
She has that one fight that she got caught by Irene Aldana, caught her with a left hook in exchange.
Yes.
But that was one of those fights where she was probably going to win.
Now, remember what I said, Dennis? I said there's 15 ways to win a fight. We've just gone about through 10 of them just now, and every one of them has been different.
Right. I'm going for Kunitskaya. Am I saying that right?
Kunitskaya.
I'll say Yana. But if I'm a betting man, and I think Vieira's gonna win.
I think she's pretty scrappy, man. I think she's pretty scrappy, and she needs to win this one.
So main event: Curtis Blades versus Derek Lewis. 2 top fighters.
I'm going with Derek Lewis.
I love Derek Lewis.
I'm going to root for Derek Lewis. I think this fight's going to be an ugly ass whooping on the ground.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. You said ugly on the ground.
Yeah.
I'll go with that. I think that Derek Lewis needs this fight. And I think they got him as an underdog in this one. If
you take out Francis Ngannou,
he's a plus 300. Derek Lewis.
Oof.
Derek Lewis is a plus 300. Curtis Blades at a minus 400.
Like, what was the last fight with Curtis Blades? We saw him dominate Volkov, and then he gassed at the very end, and Volkov started fucking him up in like the 5th round. I don't know if Derek Lewis
Dana was talking about it.
Yeah, I don't know if Derek Lewis has that as good of grappling as Volkov to even keep Curtis Blades from mauling him while he's healthy or has energy.
I like Derek Lewis, but Curtis Blades has been on the show. He's a wrestler. He's the favorite, and I gotta go there.
Yeah, I love Derek Lewis. Great Instagram, one of the best in MMA. But Curtis,
he hasn't come on the Menace Man show though. So
let me tell you something. It's and something you guys have just said, and something I've always. We just went through that card, and there wasn't out of the 10 or 11, there was maybe one gimme in there. One thing I say about MMA from the beginning, I never ever saw an easy fight.
Yeah.
Never saw it. Like in boxing at a time, there was a time when they needed to get a guy 25 wins before you got a USA date on television, because you couldn't just have a guy with a 9-5 and get a USA fight. But if you had a guy 20-1 and another guy 30-1, you got the date. So the fights were easier. I never ever thought that the UFC gave guys easy fights. Never.
Now, are you saying there's no easy fights because everybody's really good, or are you saying that like some people aren't so good that because like Amanda Nunes, like, who's gonna beat her?
Well, I when I say easy fights, I'm talking about the matchmaking and the putting the guys together. The matchups are always pretty competitive. You know, it's because you can. I mean, even though like this guy is 3-0 and Arlovski's had 52 fights, it's not a given because Arlovski's had 52 fights and this guy's only had 10 total or whatever. It's not a given. You know, I just think that the matchmaking in MMA has always been pretty good. I think they've always given people good matches, never given anybody a gimme where you could definitely say, oh man, there's no way this guy's gonna win this fight.
It's weird.
Why did he even put this fight together?
With the 4 ounces versus the 8 or 10 ounces. Like you've seen guys, like, one punch can change a fight in boxing. But MMA, one little touch with those 4-ounce gloves, even a jab sometimes goes, holy shit, I'm fucked right now. Like I'm in bad shape. Like that in boxing, you rarely see those upsets where 20-0 gets beat by the 5-5 or the 10-10. MMA,
very rarely.
A guy who has 20-10 could easily beat the guy who's 20-2. You know, like just takes one. An example I'll use is Matt Serra with GSP.
Okay.
Just takes one. Just takes one sometimes.
Yes. But he's been fighting for a long time.
Yeah, but I'm saying guys could both have experience. If you got 30 fights and he's got 30 fights and he's 25-5 and you're 16-14, that's a live fight. In MMA with the little gloves, it's weird. It's different. Boxing, the 25-5 guys should win, is gonna win. Like it's huge odds in his favor.
Then there's also padding your record. Because I remember fighting a guy that one time that was 10-0. And I was like, this is one of my easier fights versus a guy that was like 7-4.
MMA has way more intangibles. Like even Burt said, way more ways to win a fight. Way more ways for the fight.
15. I count 15 and I don't even know the name of all of them. You know? And somebody say, oh, he just anaconda him with a butterfly choke neck. And I'm like, you just said 3 things in one move. But either one of them, he could have won that fight with. And I've always been amazed with that because there are so many ways to win a fight. It's really hard for me to sit and say how somebody could absolutely say 100%, unless this guy was making his pro debut fighting Khabib, you know, then you could probably sit back and think, why would they put this match together? But in MMA, there's so many ways to win a fight.
Real quick.
Yes.
Winning fights, judging. Do you think it's perfect? Like, or should the judging in MMA be changed?
Because
me didn't have the answer. It's more judges, like a higher.
Well, here's what I honestly think. Number one, that's never, ever, ever, ever going to change. That's why I tell you never, ever, ever leave it to the judges. Knock him out. Get him out there. Submit him. Don't leave it to the judges. They were fighting about judging since 1970. Since 1970, they were complaining about judging and how people judge fights. You know, in all eras, it's the same. And I don't think that that's ever going to change because it's human. They even went to a point in one Olympics where they were using Stan. I think they had the automated judging or something in one of the Olympics. Didn't they have that?
Yes.
With, you know, they were trying to test that out. Let's see if this works. You got human beings sitting there judging the fight. I don't think that's ever, 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 ever going to change.
No, what I'm saying, there's 3 judges right now. They have a bigger opinion.
MMA could maybe be the forefront in changing the scoring system, but realistically, boxing's been around and in the main spotlight for over 100 years, and scoring is still the same as it always was, and it always kind of sucked. It always can be skewed. Conor versus Floyd, perfect example. Conor didn't win a round in the first 5 rounds. Floyd openly admitted, I was giving you away rounds. I didn't throw punches. And the judges were like, nope, 10-9 Floyd Mayweather. Boxing is still fucked up. Fighting MMA could, because they're smaller and they're on their up right now, change it now, but they most likely won't.
Like 7 judges.
Yeah, more judges, because then what that would be is you'd see the balance a little more, maybe 5-2, but you'd still maybe get 4-3, which is probably a split decision.
And a bigger cluster. Okay, I don't want to use that last word, but you know that word that comes behind cluster that doesn't rhyme with it.
Right.
I just think that's a part of the sport, of any sport, judging and refereeing. It's human error. You got human beings doing it, and you got human opinion.
That's why more judges
to take up
other people's errors.
But Dana said it really well. Why the open scoring would suck is that suspense that we've had in fighting for my whole life in 100 years, where a fight's really close. They go to the scorecards. They read out 114, 115 for this guy, 116, 112 for this guy, 116, 112, and the winner by split decision. Like if we did open scoring, we would lose that moment where they fucking have those like both guys.
But you can still have 7 judges.
Yeah, so
and you know how many decisions judges have, the unanimous decision, the open decision. I mean, it's just too many. It's just too much of a cluster. I think the 3 that they got now is pretty good. I think maybe if they train them and give them few more fights and have more consistency in the judging, I think would probably help it a little bit.
One thing
what would it take for me and Stan to become a judge?
Here's the thing though. If you have former fighters become judges, would they know better? Yes, but the bias would also come in. Oh, because it's such a small fraternity. Oh, so he knows that guy. I trained with that guy back when I was in that state, and blah 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 blah. I'm already leaning towards this guy before the fight starts. So you're probably only going to watch and judge what he lands, unless the other guy.
I don't know exactly. I don't know exactly how many fights, but judges are not trained in terms of classes and times. A guy gets familiar with the commission, and I don't know what it is today. I can't speak for 2020 or 2021, but I know that beforehand, if a guy went to a commission and said, I wanted to be a judge, they would have him go to a couple amateur fights and then go to a couple pro fights, and then they give his guy his license, and they would let him work a couple of rounds, and he's a judge or a referee. And it's not something that you have to work on for 5 years or 6 years or 7 years or anything like that. But then the majority of the judges and referees I know have been around a long time. There are guys that are still reffing it. Well, not the refs. Most of the refs are gone. But I look at fights in Las Vegas, and the judges that are there, out of 10 of them, I know all 10 of them because they've been around a long time and still don't get it.
They've been boxing judges, then MMA judges, and
yes.
And the crazy thing is too, they're all probably someone's cousin or someone's neighbor or something, and that's how they got the job for the commission. They're not qualified. They need to raise the qualifications.
I would agree. I would agree that they need to put a legitimate program together that has some consistency to it, and the same consistency that you have with the state athletic commissions. That's how they need to organize their judges and their referees.
They need Burt Watson on the job is what it is. They need Burt Watson to set this thing up.
I'll tell you one thing. That's one thing that I wouldn't want to do is judging. I think I'd be a little too critical.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You'd have a little bit of.
That's what you need.
You'd have that bias a little bit.
Okay, I'll buy that. I'll buy that with the knowledge. Yeah, with the knowledge of it.
But so here, Burt, where can people find the new podcast?
Hey, man, I love social media. So any place, anyone, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, it's Burt Watson. Burt Watson for real. Plug in. You reach out, I'll reach back out to you. And my show now is Legends to Legends on MMA Junkie. Burt Watson for real, baby. Your night, your fight. Please get it right, baby.
Oh, for real, Burt. You're the man. We want to thank you for the time. And again, we'd love to have even small little clips. Give us a little bit of Burt. Give us a 5-minute story every other week or something.
I'd love that. I've been around that man so long. I know what his hair looked like without that hat on.
That's what we like here, Burt. We're trying to get, you see what we're doing here. We're just a buddy show. We just like to shoot the shit with people, get some cool stories. If you weren't married, we'd be talking about all the girls you're pulling. That's what we're into here.
And I'm still rolling, baby. But I appreciate it, man. I appreciate the invitation. Appreciate the invite.
Then Burt, I'll text with you. I'll get on Legends.
My pleasure. Please, everybody, make sure you follow your boy. Your night, your fight, get it right.
You're the man, Burt. Thank you for the time, brother.
Appreciate it, baby. We rolling.
All right, Menace, let's wrap this up.
Yeah, I gotta go eat. My lady made some broccoli, cream of broccoli.
The legendary Burt Watson joined us.
Stud.
This was a good one.
He's probably got so much more shit.
Oh, endless.
Bro, for like decades, he said every show.
That's a shot that I need you to shoot is hit him with, yes, we're being sincere. We really want you to come on in like 2 weeks or something and just give us a 5-minute story. And we'll have it be
oh my God.
Story time with Burt Watson.
Tyron Woodley just hit me. Just finished training.
So say next week, unless you want to do it right now.
I gotta go.
All right, so tell him 100% next week. Let's set it up. Tell him next week, 7 o'clock.
Well, it would have to be 8.
8, whatever you got. Whatever you want to do, player. And I'll make sure that I'll do it from Sanford, and that way we have a better connection and whatnot. But it was good.
Do you have Gilbert over your shoulder?
No one's over my shoulder now. I switched it.
No, I'm saying if you were doing it from Sanford, we had Tyron on. What's up, man?
Oh, who would be over my shoulder?
Gilbert.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be awkward.
Bro, I mean, I like Tyrone, but Gilbert beat him pretty bad that first one.
But whatever. Well, see you later.
It was good seeing you, man.
Likewise, Buzz. Stay safe.
Mm-hmm.